The Korean government continues to argue that the country's free trade deals with the world's three biggest economies, the US, the European Union and soon to be China, would serve as a springboard for economic growth. But Korea's trade with the EU actually swung from a surplus to a deficit shortly after Seoul and Brussels signed their FTA in 2011, and the shortfall has since widened. Our Shin Se-min reports.
A $10.2 billion deficit. That's how much Korea was down from trading with EU nations last year. Korea's exports to the world's single largest economic bloc reached over $50 billion, while its exports topped $60 billion. The deficit trend began after the Korea-EU Free Trade Pact was signed in 2011. The following year, Korea suffered the first deficit in 15 years in its trade with Europe, with a shortfall of $970 million. And it rose to $7.3 billion in 2013. The reversal in trend is attributed to the fragile European economy. The situation was so desperate that the European Central Bank recently decided to pump $68 billion every month into the economy to prevent it from completely grinding to a halt. On the plus side, lower tariffs meant a surge in European exports to Korea. Sales of German cars in Korea, for example, jumped nearly 30% last year alone.
Imports of German cars, European furniture and medicine soared, and with the recent sanctions against Iran, many Korean importers turned to EU for crude oil.
Although most Korean exporters suffered from a slow economy in Europe, shipbuilders were the hardest hit. Korean shipyards saw their deliveries to Europe tumble 50% from $12 billion in 2011 to $6 billion last year.
While overall demand is suppressed, Chinese and Japanese shipbuilders have offered cheaper prices to snatch orders from their Korean rivals, taking advantage of the Korean currency's appreciation.
He added that the trend of slow exports to the Eurozone is likely to continue, at least in the foreseeable future. Experts say that although the gaping trade shortfall is largely due to chronic economic slump in Europe, Korean companies will have to step up efforts to make their products more attractive to European consumers in terms of price, quality, and branding. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.